So I was a weapons systems officer in a F-15E Strike Eagle, which is a kind of like a backseater, like Goose from Top Gun, if you will, to use a very loose example. I got to say, there's not a whole lot of people, Mac, that I've come across in my career that have been in fighter jets and in fulfillment centers. So good is the enemy of great, as they say, Mac, the famous quote there. Once people get good enough, they settle for that. But that's the absolute enemy of being great. And that takes effort. It's hard to push through that, but it's good on the other side. Because you're leading real people, Mac. And that's the thing that I love about it most is it's not like you're not leading in a boardroom. You're leading in a physical environment on the floor with people from all classes and all shapes and sizes. And that's one thing that I've always loved about working in the fulfillment center world. And that's why I like blue collar leadership. I'm there.
Hello, and thanks for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast today. Or if you're watching on the Real People Getting Real Results on the Blue Collar Leadership YouTube channel, thanks for watching there. And I got a special guest today, and I'm excited to introduce you to Mr. Ben Hopkins. He's the host of the Warehouse Underground, which is a phenomenal podcast. And I'm going to let him tell you all about it since he's here. But I had the privilege of being on his show recently, and he aired that as episode 31. And I'm telling you, Ben don't play. So welcome to the show, Ben.
Thanks for having me on the show, Mac. It's like we meet again, deja vu. It seems like it was just yesterday we were chatting.
Yeah, man. When you interviewed me, I wanted to know about you, but you were interviewing me, so I didn't get to ask all those questions. And you agreed to come back, and I get to talk to you today about who you are. And one question I always ask everyone that comes on the show, because I like everybody to know who watches, or especially watches on the YouTube channel. I want them to know we're connected. I don't interview random people. I get requests every day to be on my show, and I just delete them. I don't take requests. I find folks like you that I know somehow. So do you remember how you even come to know me or discovered me or anything like that? I know you said before you listened to my podcast when we
I have. Last time. Yeah, I have. So I have a website called the Warehouse Underground. I run that website, and with that is the podcast. And part of that is growing my network. So I'm connected with a lot of people that work in the warehousing and distribution center, fulfillment center industry, really from all levels, hourly up to the director and everywhere in between. And so when you do that, you start to get linked up with a lot of people, and you know how the internet goes. This person knows this person's connected to this person. I think I stumbled upon you somewhere in that building up of that community. Okay. And I think it may have been there. I think Josh Newman, who is he's a member of my website. He follows the podcast. He mentioned you to me and said, you should check out this Mac Story guy. He's doing awesome work out there. And so I reached out to you. I like, Mac, this is great. I love what you're doing. Reach out to you. I listened to all your shows, and you came on my podcast, and it was great. I think we really hit it off. So I think that's just the power, I think, of LinkedIn and networking and putting yourself out there. You stumble upon some great people, and I think that's how it all started.
Yeah, and you got great content, and your show looks so well produced. I mean, everything's squared away. You made us elevate our game. This background we have here, we didn't have that before. It was just black, and then I saw your show. I was like, man, he's got a cool background. Hey, Rhea, make us a nice background, and that's why we elevate. You elevating our game, Ben.
Yeah. So I like it. Yeah, I like it. It looks really good.
Well, Rhea's awesome like that. She just makes stuff happen. It ain't fancy like yours, but it's different. Yours is cool. I love the forklifts. I don't know if you did it on purpose, or probably did since you're so cool. But you got the two spotlights. The lights look like they're shining on the people when we're talking. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, the funny thing about that background is when I was building the website. From the very beginning, I mean, I've been running it for almost 2 years now. You're trying to find art and everything that goes along with it, and the background and everything. And so I stumbled upon this website that had a lot of pictures of warehouses. And one day I came across that one, and I thought, man, that's really cool. But when I saw that photo, I had no intention of launching a podcast at that time. I just sort of saved it away, because I thought the picture was cool, the way that it looks. And then months later, when I thought, oh, I'm going to do a podcast. That photo's awesome. I'm going to put that photo in there. So it just kind of worked out that way. If I would have been actively searching to find it, I probably never been able to find it. You know how that goes. You just,
Yep.
just
Yeah. I
stumbled
mean,
upon it, kept it.
it looks so good. So I didn't get to ask you all this before, so I'm gonna just start out with, who are you and what's your story? However much of it you want to share, personal, professional, one or the other,
Yeah.
both, doesn't make any difference. Whatever you feel
Yeah.
like sharing.
Yeah. So I've been in the warehouse and distribution center industry now for over 13 years at really all levels, from a floor manager to a senior ops manager to director and everywhere in between. So I've kind of cut my teeth in the civilian world. And I say civilian world because before that, for about 10 years, before that, I was actually an Air Force officer.
Okay.
So I was a weapons systems officer in a F-15E Strike Eagle, which is a kind of like a backseater, like Goose from Top Gun, if you will, to use a very loose example. And so my wife and I, we lived a whole separate life with that. I ended up flying. I was an instructor. I became an instructor of instructors, and 2 deployments to Afghanistan in the jet, and over 100 combat missions and the whole like. Right. So I lived that life, and then kind of worked in the civilian side in the warehouse and distribution center industry now, which I got to say, there's not a whole lot of people, Mac, that I've come across in my career that have been in fighter jets and in fulfillment centers. So I may be one of one on that. I'm sure there's probably others, but I don't know any others.
So you actually flew in the back seat. That was your job. Whatever happens in the back seat, that's who you were doing that job back there.
Yeah, I did. So the Strike Eagle was a crew aircraft that had a pilot in the front seat, a weapons system officer in the back seat, which worked out very well for close air support, which is what we flew when we went into Afghanistan, because there's so much happening on the ground. You're flying in support of whoever, the Army guys on the ground or the Navy SEAL teams on the ground or whatever's happening. So it's very busy down there. There's a lot of things happening. So it's great to split up duties and have one person who's responsible for flying the jet and one person who's responsible for sort of being in the know with the fight that's going on in the ground, to figure out how we can come in and support that. So it was great. I'm very proud of it. It was very unique, but I don't include any of those stories or anything in my warehousing and distribution center world. But it's just like our background, Mag. It's always a part of you. You always take a part of it and apply it to what you do, a small portion of it, even if, there's no direct correlation between fighter jets and fulfillment centers. However, there are a lot of indirect correlations, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to how you execute things, how you have attention to detail, your leadership, resiliency, all those intangibles do transfer over much more than it is, hey, can you there's no need to laze a bomb on a target in a fulfillment center. I would say it's not really a thing.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate your service to our country. And I know a lot of our listeners definitely appreciate that as well. And you got to have some cool stories, man. That you probably could write a book on just some of that stuff. And you might have to write a fictional book that's got some truth in it,
Well, as they say in the fighter community, you have to have at least 10% of the story has to be true. If 10% of the story is true, then you press forward. Then it's good to tell.
Yeah, man, that's cool. That just seemed like I've never spoken to anybody who was a pilot or got to ride in the back seat like that in one of those jets. That'd be I mean, I probably have spoken to somebody, but not in detail, and I don't remember it. I remember yours, and especially with you being on here. But that's got to be awesome. I mean, when you ain't doing your job, you long for the ride, man. It's like you at Six Flags back there hanging out, huh?
Yeah, I mean, there I have a lot of great stories from my time in the community and the jet, but it's like they say, Mac, the thing that you miss most about your time is not necessarily the jet and flying it, although that was great. There was a lot. What you miss most is the brotherhood, the camaraderie that you had, just surrounded by fantastic people that you could trust, that had your back, that were honorable. Everyone was like that. And sometimes you get out in the civilian world a little bit, and it's not that it's not that it's bad, but it's never quite the same as what it's like being in that type of a fighter community. You never really feel that same cohesion quite like you did there, but it's very unique circumstances that you're in when you're there. And so I miss that the most. Those are the stories that are the most near and dear to me, much more than, crazy how fast the jet did or how many G's we pulled, or I went upside down at night, in the weather or anything like that. So those are cool, but it's the people that really made it special.
Absolutely, man. That's awesome. So you got anything else about your personal story or professional story you want to share before I kind of dive into this list of questions I got for you today?
Yeah, well, so we live in the same state. So I mentioned that I'm from Georgia. I know you're not from Georgia, so I just want to let everybody know. I was telling Rhea before the show, it's amazing that I've been to Afghanistan and Spain and Nevada and Utah, all these other places, but where I end up is 45 minutes from where I where I grew up in Georgia. So very, very proud to be from here. Although I've interacted and managed people from all across the country, as I'm sure you have as well. So
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, we don't live too far apart because we live in Georgia now, but we're from Alabama, and we probably moved back to Alabama. So what motivated you to launch the Warehouse Underground podcast?
Yeah, so I launched the Warehouse Underground for a couple of different reasons. When I was so I started my career in distribution at Amazon, like a lot of people do. So I worked in an Amazon fulfillment center in South Carolina, about like what you would imagine, big, fast, a lot of moving parts. But I left there and I went to become a director of distribution at a family-owned company. And when I got there, I realized that the things that I had learned, the skills that I had learned, the knowledge that I had learned were great, but they were really only useful inside the four walls of an Amazon fulfillment center. They were very designed and curated for just that. And so I thought I was very qualified when I became this director, but I quickly realized, oh my goodness, there's a lot of things that I don't know. And so I had this quest for knowledge. Where do I learn this, and how do I learn this skill, and what is this thing? And at that time, this is 2015, so this is 10 years ago. LinkedIn was a thing, but it wasn't as big as it is now. And I'm like, where do I go? And I remember the company was when I first got there, they were implementing a warehouse management software. And so I was a part of that. And then we built a distribution center from the ground up, and I was a part of that. And I wanted to find information and knowledge about how all this works. And there's just nothing. I couldn't find anything on the internet. And so in the back of my mind, I always had this idea that I'm going to start a website one day that is a little bit like a town square for everybody that is in this industry. It's built for them. It's curated for them. It has art that's like that they like you saw, that speaks to them. Yep. And I want to do it for a couple of reasons. I want to do it as a resource for them, that they can come, and all the podcasts that I do, Mac, you've seen the shows and I have, they're all free. They all live in perpetuity. Somebody may get information from them now, like I wanted back 10 years ago, or if they're not where they are yet in their career where that's important to them, it may be in the future. And they may come back and say, oh, yeah, I remember there was this podcast about this specific piece of information or this knowledge. So I wanted it to be a resource for them. And then the second thing, Mac, is I wanted it to be a platform for them. Because if you look at the podcast world, there's podcasts on just about everything you can think of in just about every industry that you can imagine. I mean, hundreds of them. But for whatever reason, when it comes to the warehouse and distribution center industry, there's not that many podcasts in that realm for those folks that are working there, which I just found was very odd, because there's hundreds of thousands of people across the country that are working in fulfillment centers. And I'm like, there's no podcast for them. There's nothing out there. So like, I'm going to make something that's going to highlight them, that I've brought other people on the show. Now I've brought managers on the show and leaders on the show to kind of have a platform for them to spread their light and put their voice out there. And then the last thing is, I want other people in other industries to see it and know and understand and see for themselves how talented and good the people in this industry can be. Because sometimes I think there's a little bit of a misnomer where people who are not connected with the industry think, oh, it's a warehouse, just big guys driving around forklifts. And that's not how it is. Some of the smartest, most talented people that I've ever met, and I was in Strike Eagles, work in the fulfillment center industry. So I wanted that platform for them. I wanted to be a resource. I wanted to shine a light on them for everybody else to see what they do. And so there's a little bit of everything for everyone there at the site. I even have a comedy show that I do, Mac, if you can believe that. So
jokes for me today. You want to drop a joke on me?
no jokes. You put me on the spot. So now like panic. I wasn't prepared to throw any. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, I do a show called The Tiger Team, and I've released 6 episodes. I have a co-host. Her name's Jordan, but she wants to remain anonymous, Mac, because she's still in the industry, and so she doesn't. Some of the things on the show are a little bit edgy and witty and sarcastic, and so she's like, I don't want to say anything that might harm my career. So she's anonymous, but check out the Tiger Team show if you want some wit, humor, and sarcasm from things going on in the world of warehouse and distribution. That's on the website too, and is a separate podcast.
And what's the website? The Warehouse Underground?
Yeah, the Warehouse Underground, thewarehouseunderground.com.
Okay.
Top site on Google, but the podcast plays on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube, that just like yours.
Okay, that's outstanding, man. And so how do you come up with your guests? I mean, I kind of heard a little bit how you come up with me as a guest, but how do you typically get your guests?
I think it's a little bit of a mixed bag. So some people come to me because they are a startup, or they have a piece of technology, or they're a consultant and they're trying to grow in the industry, and they'll come to me. Hey, I would really like to come on the show and talk about this. Are you okay with that? And in most cases, I say yes. There have been a couple of times where I just didn't feel like there was enough of a overlap between what they were selling or what they were bringing on the show and what my audience would like to hear. And so I said no, even though I'm new, right? I don't have 500 or 600 shows, but I still, what I do is for the audience. So I will turn people away. The other way is just like what you saw, Mac. I am every day, I try to build my network online and on LinkedIn, which is crazy because in my career, I was traditionally not very good at networking at all. Yeah. like I tell this to people, I'm actually a fairly introverted person, which sometimes people don't realize because they're like, what you're doing the podcast and the show. I'm like, yeah, but that's just because I'm doing it for the community. So it was hard for me, but now as part of growing the website and everything, you have to get out there and you have to network and you have to meet people. And so once you start doing that, it's just, you come across so many unique and talented people that are putting it out there in the universe, right? They're putting stuff out there on LinkedIn. Yep. And when I come across people that I like, that I find very insightful, that's in the same kind of area that I'm at, I just reach out to them. I reach out to them and I try to kind of develop a rapport with them and maybe start a conversation, and then eventually say, hey, I also run this podcast. Would you be interested coming on the podcast? It's free. And I can help you kind of grow your network and the whole thing in the warehouse and distribution center industry. So it's really just a mixed bag, and you never know. You never know you never know who may end up on the show. I'll just leave it at that. So because I got some very interesting guests lined up.
What was that?
I have some very interesting guests lined up.
Oh, you and got hopefully
Carlos. Yep, hopefully Carlos Cody. So I sent him some of the questions, and so hopefully I know you're close with him, and he's worked closely with you, and I'd love to get him on the show too. I hope he's listening.
Yeah, he'll get on there. I don't know. He's a busy guy. I'm sure you know more about how busy he is than I do at Amazon, but he's got a family and stuff. But he wants to be on your show, so I know that'll happen, and that's going to be great for your audience. So out of the shows that's happened so far, which is there any show that stands out for you the most, and why? Maybe you unexpectedly learned something, or somebody was interested, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I always I learn something from every one of my guests that I have on the show, and I'm sure you can appreciate that, Mac. I mean, you talk with people, and when they're very open with you, when they're very honest, when they're very authentic. I'm not just hosting the show. In fact, sometimes I catch myself uh, being just an observer of the show, right?
Yeah.
As it's going on, and I'll have to remind myself, oh my God, no, I have to drive the questions, I have to do everything because I'm the host. But sometimes people are so interesting. But I would say, the one show that always will mean the most to me is just always number one. And I think you can appreciate this because I had my first guest on. I reach out to a guest. His name's Casey Winans. He is a warehouse management consultant, does incredible work out there in the industry. And um, I just, I'm like, I'm going to send it. I'm just going to ask him. I don't know if he's going to come on the podcast. I don't even know what I'm doing, but I get over my shyness, right? And my uncomfortableness and kind of reach out to someone. They say, yes, you create a show. And it's that moment where you've made this big leap from something exists in your brain. Something exists in your brain. You think about it, you think about it, you think about it, you sleep about it. But the moment where you begin to turn it into a reality is where it's kind of like a little fire. If you've ever started a little fire when you're camping, the hardest part is kind of getting that first ember to kind of take root. Once the fire gets bigger, then you're just throwing some twigs on it, it gets bigger. But that first thing is always the part where you celebrate the most. You don't really celebrate once it's a roaring fire. You celebrate when you first get it started. And so I think for me, kind of doing that first show, even though when I go back and I listen to it sometimes and I see the visuals, I'm like, what, like, what was this terrible? Why did I ask that question? The audio is horrible, right? The sunlight's like shining on my face and you can't see my face. Yeah. Like I didn't know how to do all those things, but it doesn't matter, right? Because you learn all those things over time as you go. But kind of taking that leap to that first thing, I think for me personally was just the biggest moment. And that's why I think it will always be the most special show to me, no matter how many I do.
Yeah. That's when you made it happen, right?
Yeah.
That's when you quit talking about it and started doing it.
Yeah. So,
go ahead.
And then second show, I think the biggest milestone was I picked up a sponsor, right? So I which is another big moment for website creators or podcasters where you're like, you serious? Somebody like wants to pay me to do ads for them and and so Warehouse on Wheels is the first sponsor of my show. And I had them on the show and I really love to kind of help spread the word for them and tout them. And we're in alignment, their audience, their crowd, the people they serve is warehouse managers, and that's exactly who I have too. So I would say the first show and then the first sponsored show that I did was the two big moments.
So let's serve them well, if you don't mind, for a minute, because they helping you help the world. So what is Warehouse on Wheels? Tell me about it. Let's give them a shout out.
Warehouse on Wheels is at its core is a storage company, and so they are all across North America, Canada, United States, and Mexico. And I think they have over 35,000 storage trailers. And so running out of space in warehouses is a common occurrence, distribution center, and even manufacturing too. I mean, they have a lot of manufacturing plants that really just start to get jam packed in their building and they can't expand. Right. And so they need some type of relief valve where they're going to handle all this pallets, all this extra space. And that's where Warehouse on Wheels comes in. So they deliver storage trailers right when people need it, right to their door. Very easy to work with them. They are a gem. And I know this from personal experience because when I was managing in operations back in the day, 10 years ago, I ran out of space in the facilities that I ran, but I didn't know there was no solution for me back then. I didn't have a relief valve like Warehouse on Wheels to move some stuff out in storage trailers in my yard. So I just put it down the aisles and it got everywhere, and it was a whole big wreck, right? A whole big mess.
You got to go rent a space, and now that's a lot more cost and transportation in between storage facilities. It's a lot. So that sounds like definitely a value added service that they provide for sure.
Yeah, they're great. Very good leadership too. Very, just a great company. You should follow them on LinkedIn if you don't. Jonathan Brooks is the CEO there. A fantastic guy. I've really enjoyed working with him.
Good deal. Well, it's a privilege to share them with whoever's listening to my podcast. Somebody might get some value out of that and get some service out of them. So, or give them some service, some business.
Yep.
So what's the best thing about working in an FC DC? And tell us what that, everybody don't know what FC and DC stands for.
Yeah, so if they get used interchangeably a lot. So a fulfillment center or a distribution center. So Amazon is the most well-known fulfillment center out there, but most companies that you've heard about, most big companies will have some type of distribution center for fulfillment center that supports them. So anyone who is shipping product to your door or to businesses is going to come out of fulfillment center or distribution center. And I think one of the very good things about working in an environment like that, Mac, I found, is that the diversity spectrum of people that you lead is very, very broad, right? When I was in the Air Force, it was very narrow. But one of the things I learned about working in fulfillment center world is you have blue collar people working in there, you have white collar people working in there, from every demographic, every race, every sex, all shapes and sizes, like you name it. It is a great sample of the United States as a whole, I think, what you see when you are inside of a fulfillment center. Yeah. And so the types of leadership development that you get to practice there, that you get to have in there, leading people of all types, is fantastic. And I think the people that really pour their heart and pour their self into leadership development, learning how to become a better leader, reading about it, networking, gaining information, and then putting it into practice, and then getting that feedback of, hey, what's working and what's not working. Yep. The people that do that come out of the time in the fulfillment center, whether it's 5 years or 7 years, being fantastic leaders, right? Because you're leading real people, Mac. And that's the thing that I love about it most, is it's not like you're not leading in a boardroom. You're leading in a physical environment on the floor with people from all classes and all shapes and sizes. And that's one thing that I've always loved about working in the fulfillment center world. And that's why I like blue collar leadership. I mean, I've led thousands of hourly employees in that world, in that environment. And some of them, Mac, were some of the most talented people that I've ever came across in my life, my career. They just had not been developed, right? They had not had that opportunity. They had not heard the word, the light bulb hadn't come on for them. And when you're in a position where you can help that happen for them, there's just like, that's so intoxicating, right? It's better than any drug to see somebody that can really, like we said on my podcast, they were one way and then they went another way and they never turned back, right? And I think, leaders and FCs are really have a front row seat for that. I mean, they're right at the front lines of being able to change hundreds of people's lives really in a really meaningful way. And I've always found that very special.
Yeah, that's good stuff too. And in this civilian world, it ain't like the military. Everybody's not getting training all the time. They're not getting trained how to follow and trained on how to lead. And you ain't got the uniform code of military justice to keep everybody squared away. And they don't have to come back tomorrow if they don't like working there today. So it's quite a different kind of challenge as a leader, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think one of the challenging parts of it is, and you and I have talked about this, people want to know about ROI. Business owners want to know about ROI, general managers and senior leaders. And I understand that. And in the fulfillment center world, there is a lot of pressure to hit certain metrics and KPI. I mean, just everything that you can think of is measured, and it's constant pressure. Every day you go in there, everything. And so the risk is, I think, that people that go in there that are pure leaders when they go in can be consumed by all of the pressure of money and metrics and KPIs, and that rules the day. And then all of a sudden, if you're not careful, you turn into just someone that's consuming 100% of your time, and you've forgotten about the folks that are working in there and developing them and all that. And so I think that's the downside of working in a high pressure FC is is losing sight of what it means to be a pure leader of people, because you're so under the gun to hit this metric or explain why you didn't hit this or hit this number, and all that. And so the leaders that can have a place for both of them in their brain, that can create a healthy balance of each side of that, I think are the ones that are going to succeed and have the most success in that environment over the long haul.
Okay, so you may have just answered that other question, but I will make sure if that was the answer to it. I'm not sure, but I asked you about the best thing about working in a FCDC, and I was going to ask you about the worst. Just was that your answer, or is that something different?
Yeah, no, I that is the worst thing for me. I think is just it's not it's you can turn it into a positive, right?
Yeah.
You can learn strategies on how to do that. But for young managers that start out in the world of fulfillment centers, and I've seen this a lot over my career, they come in on day one and they're great. They're very positive. They're very engaging. They have great energy. Day one of year three, you see them and they're a completely different person, because they've just been overwhelmed by the pressure and the numbers and the metrics. And it's almost like they don't even look like the same person anymore. It's just the energy's bad and they're a little bit disgruntled and they're a little bit salty and everything. And so I think that's something that people need to be aware of when they go into that career, that will hit you. But if you can build your armor up knowing what's going to hit you, what storm's going to hit you, then when it does, you're not surprised, right? You've got a counterattack for it. You've got a defense built up around it. You know what's coming, so it's not going to get into your heart, right? I don't mean to get soft on you, but you want to keep those things away from your heart, because once they get into your heart, your heart turns black and it gets, you don't want that. Right. So I think, and that's not just in distribution. I know that happens in factories too, and manufacturing, and really every career out there. But that's the best advice I have for people, is build up that armor around all that stuff. Keep everything out of your heart, but know that it is a reality of working in that world. As much as you may not want it to be, it is, right? And you have to face that at some point if you're going to be a good leader.
All right. So what kind of folks, talking about that, what kind of folks excel in that industry? What kind of people thrive? What kind of traits do they have? I guess what I'm asking really is, what kind of character type traits that people bring to the table that do have a great experience?
I think a little bit this depends. And so I tell this to people sometimes, in the fulfillment center world, there's a seat for everyone on the bus. And so some people naturally gravitate towards being vocal leaders, right? They like to be a leader of people, and they like that. And there's a spot for them there. But there's also a spot for people that don't want to be a manager. I've encountered a lot of people in my career that say, I don't really want to get promoted up into a manager. I like to be a solo contributor in my area, and there is a life for them there too. There are lots of side projects and research and data and analysis and everything. And so that is the onus is on people to speak up and let people know, hey, this is the type of thing that I gravitate towards. Because if you put somebody in their wheelhouse, they're going to hit. You know what I mean? So I think that's the step one. And then the second thing I think that people excel is they just very comfortable with a fast pace, right? Making decisions in a very fast pace, a fast dynamic environment. There's not a lot of time to really, research things and do all that. Like in a big fulfillment center, it's moving fast. So people that are comfortable with that ambiguity, that are comfortable thinking on their feet, that are comfortable trying new things, are the ones that excel. And that means that you have to have a firm foundation of leadership built up ahead of time before you go in there. And as you start working in there, because when the storm hits, when the race hits, that's not the time to realize you don't really know what you're doing. So I tell people, just like we talked about on the show you did with me, Mac, like, you've got to always be reading, you've got to always be reading, gaining knowledge, gaining perspective, because that's the things that you have. That's the armor that you have and the weapons that you have when it comes out time there, when it comes time to execute, and things don't go as planned, or they're going fast, or they're changing fast, that's the time to say, boom, I already got it. I've already got this. I've thought about this. I'm ready for this. And then everybody looks and they go, that's the guy, or that's the girl that I want to follow right there. He's assertive. He's confident. He's engaging, and it's natural. It's not. He's not going over to look through the user manual when this is happening, right? He's just he has it. He's prepared. He's prepared for the day, and you can't fake that. You can't fake preparation when it hits.
Yeah, that's Les Brown. One of my favorite quotes from him. He says it's always better to be prepared for an opportunity and not have one than to have an opportunity and not be prepared. And that's really what you're talking about. So on that topic, what's your favorite personal growth or leadership development book that you've ever read, and why?
So this book, I'm sure you've heard of this book. So
actually, I haven't heard of that.
Oh, no. Oh, it's John Wooden, on leadership. John Wooden was a basketball coach at UCLA in the 60s.
Yep.
Which
heard of him.
I'm not really. So I never really was a big basketball guy, Mac. I played baseball and football and everything. Basketball is not really my thing, but this book from John Wooden, I've learned more about managing people and leading people than any book that I've read. Now, I think the thing that I like the reason it's my go-to is because it reminds me a little bit of my grandfather, sort of like your grandfather's wisdom type thing, where you have all this new age stuff, right? The latest and greatest stuff. There's always new theories but this book is like eating a balanced diet, like there's all these workout fads that you can do, everything under the sun. But at the end of the day, if you drink water, get 8 hours of sleep, eat healthy, exercise, you're going to be healthy. That's this book for me. And so I think anytime I ever start to get off kilter, or I always come back to that book to go, I'm going to read a wholesome book that's written from somebody that reminds me of my grandfather. That was the basics that was written in the 50s and 60s about leadership and the pyramid and the foundation for there. And I think it's fantastic. He talks a lot in there about a concept that I like, and that is, and I'm getting ahead of myself here with the question that's coming up, but one of my favorite quotes in there is he expects 100% from his players, right? And himself. And he says, if you underperform one day, if you don't give your best one day, you can't make it up by giving 110% the next day.
Because you can't do it.
That's right. You can give 100% is what you can give. And I always chuckle when I see sports or athletes on TV, and it's like some people give 110%, and then if you pay attention, Max, some people say 150. I've heard some people say 1,000%. Like, wow, well, that guy's given 1,000%, so he just makes the guy who's given 110% look like a chump. There's one number. There's one number you can give 100%, and that is your maximum ability, and only you can define what that is. And so John Wooden demands 100%, and I think for everybody out there, for me, I've always tried to remind myself that, okay, that someone is always going to be more talented than me. Someone's always going to have more opportunity than me. Somebody's always going to be in a better situation than me. That I cannot control that. I can control what is in this book, and that is giving 100% of my effort and my ability, whether that's developing my faith or my network or my job or my knowledge or reading. I can live with that. Right? Whatever the chips fall, if I give 100% of my ability, I feel like internally that I am the best position that I can be to succeed. And what other people do, I don't know. And I'll know, and I'll know that there's been times in my life where I was not giving 100%. I was given 70% or 60%, and I had every excuse under the sun. But then I thought, if the outcome of what I'm getting is not what I want, how can I blame anything other than myself for that? Right. And so I liked that book. And then there's a second book
quick,
that
Ben, I hate to interrupt you, but will you read the title of that book? And for the people who are listening and not watching, what was the title of your John Wooden book?
The book is Wooden on Leadership by John Wooden and Steve Jameson.
Okay. All right. So the folks listening got know what we're talking about now. And And John was actually a mentor of John Maxwell. I don't know if you know that or not. Okay.
Yep.
So
And I just love it because it's just old fashioned, and he was one of the most successful college basketball coaches of all time. I mean, and so the second book I've read, and this is why I say I like to have a foundation built of wholesome leadership, because and maybe you can appreciate this, Mac, but the farther up I began to get in my career, the more I started to realize there's other forces in play with some of the other people that I work with, other senior leaders, that they don't necessarily share my same foundation, right? Yeah. And so there's another book that I have read called The 48 Laws of Power. Okay. Now, this is not a leadership book. Okay. In fact, it's not a very good book to read unless you have a good foundation first. But 48 Laws of Power kind of talks about some of the things that people do that is more from the bad side of leadership, the manipulative things that people do, or the things that people do to conspire against you. And I found as I went higher in my career that was happening to me, and I didn't know what was happening. I was too green to understand that, because I came up from pure leadership, right, in the military and the Air Force and John Wooden. And so, 48 Laws of Power helped me to understand, oh, here's some of the things that people are going to do that's bad. One, you know that it's not necessarily bad, right? Just a little, but not necessarily wholesome. So it's helped me to understand what the other team sometimes is doing, so that, again, I know how to build my strategy. I know how to build my armor around that, so that I'm not surprised when someone tries to do something to manipulate me or get one over on me or do something like that. And then you kind of know, so what the opposing team's doing. So 48 Laws of Power, but don't read it unless you have a good foundation of a good moral foundation of who you are, because it's more of the dark side of what people can do.
So you got to have a foundation to know what you're reading ain't what you need to be doing. It's what you don't need to be doing. Sounds like, maybe.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
If you want to lead with a high degree of character, if you value manipulation, that book's probably great for you to go help you learn how to manipulate folks and dominate and dictate. And it's not what me and you are about.
Not a good long-term strategy though, Mac, and certainly not in the fulfillment center industry. You will burn out with that eventually, because there's another quote that I like, right? And I'm sure you've heard this: if you take care of your people, they'll take care of you. If you don't take care of them, they'll take care of you.
Yeah, in a different way, right? Either way. Is that your favorite leadership quote, by the way, or the one you shared earlier, or you got another one in the bag?
I think I like the one about the 100%. I think 100% is what you should expect out of yourself and everybody else. And if you find that you are feeling like you need to give 110% or 120%, you can't. And then that's an indication that you're not consistently giving your very best every day.
Yeah. That's you. I just got to share one thing right here. You're talking about that. And when I was in manufacturing, I was on a night shift, and a day shift guy used to always get angry with me because I'd run like 150%. But in the manufacturing world, you can do that when the rates are wrong, and that's what was wrong. The routed rates were wrong. So he was running like 90%, thinking he's doing good, but he knew. I mean, he just kind of goofed off most of the day and piddled around. But I actually come in and worked, and that's I wasn't the guy I am today. And back in those days, I come in he came in one morning when I was on the night shift, and he walked up kind of sarcastic, why are you making us look bad, man? I said, what are you talking about? He said, because you're in here running 140 or 50% every night, and you making us look bad. Now, I wasn't the guy I am today. I'm talking, I was 20-something years old back then, and I reached out and shook his hand, and he kind of shook it reluctantly, and I said, I just want to thank you. He said, what are you thanking me for? I said, because if you actually come in here and work all day, I wouldn't look special. I'd look average, but since you come in here and goof around all day, you're making me look really nice, so I appreciate it. That was before I ever read any character development, leadership development books, and I was a little different guy back then. But it was the same thing. You can't run you can't do more than 100%.
Yeah, I think, and I just find a lot of comfort in it, right? And I think that's what you can do, and your 100% is going to be different every day. I mean, I have kids, right? And so I have a 6th grader and a 7th grader, and when they were little, that took up a lot of energy. And sometimes sometimes your 100% was was not what your 100% was the next day, like you just tired or whatever. But I think people internally know whether or not they're giving their best. And if we're honest with ourselves, and we are choosing to spend our time on other things, right? If we are giving our time to other areas, the outcome that we will get, the scoreboard is going to reflect whatever the inputs are over a long enough scale. And so if you're not happy with what your scoreboard is showing, then I think I always tell people, then you need to look at what the inputs are, because the inputs is what ultimately leads to what comes on the scoreboard. So, it's hard. It's easier said than done. And I think it's something that requires work and effort and commitment every day to do that. And I fail at it a lot. Right. I don't know what, like many people do, but I think if it's something that people say, no, I care about this, I acknowledge this is real, I'm going to follow this, I think that's the first biggest step, is just sending it and moving from there.
10-4, man, that's good stuff too. So you got a podcast. Do you actually listen to podcasts? And if so, do you have a favorite, and what is it about that one that gets you to listen?
A blue collar leadership, right?
I'm exempt. I'm exempt from the answer unless that's actually 100% the truth. But is there one you actually do listen to and you like?
So it's weird, but I'm not really. I don't really listen to that many podcasts. I'm more of a book reader, like you.
I like that too now. Yeah,
I like a lot of books. A podcast, I hear it, but because I make a podcast, sometimes I can't. Like when I hear somebody else's podcast, the podcaster in me will take over. Like, oh, that wasn't a good question. Why would they ask that question? Oh, their audio is terrible, right? Or their lighting, right? All these things that I know about behind the scenes, and it ruins my podcast experience. But if you read a book from people, that, like, I'm a podcaster, so I can say this: coming up with questions and asking people question takes like a minute to do. Right. Like, or verbally, I'm asking a question. But if I'm writing a book, like how you wrote your books, that is someone's time and effort and heart and soul that is being poured into that book. And that's what I want to consume. I mean, I like podcasts, but sometimes they can be a little bit surface level, but somebody's heart and soul and their spirit goes into a book. And if you read that and consume that, that's like eating, your fruits and vegetables, man. You getting healthy and you're getting good. Some podcasts a little bit like eating junk food, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, I come across some of them every now and then. I don't listen very long and anymore after that, because you can kind of tell, right? And you're talking about writing the book, and I remember one line from my very first book. It took me 45 minutes to get that line right, and it's the only one I really remember like that, is that one. And it seems so simple now, basically. And I say it all the time to people, but it's too often in life, people who are searching find what they'll settle for and stop searching for what they were looking for. And too many people settle. That's why they end up miserable. They settle on a house, a spouse, a job, a salary. Once they get where they can kind of get somewhat comfortable, they ain't really comfortable, but they ain't struggling. And then they just coast and they ride out life and wait to retire, and then they retire, and then they wait to die, and it's all over. Unfortunately, a lot of people live in that space.
Good is the enemy of great, as they say, Mac. The famous quote there. Once people get good enough, they settle for that, but that's the absolute enemy of being great, and that takes effort. It's hard to push through that, but it's good on the other side.
Yep. So I want to. Everybody who comes on my show, I send them a book. So Rhea and I have a lot of books. You can pick from any of our 35 books. I don't know if you know of any books of ours you want at the moment. If not, you can just text me or message me or whatever and let me know. But if you want to preview some of our books to see what might interest you, you go to bluecollarleadership.com/download. You actually can read the first 5 chapters and see a preview. Nice. Most of them are the first 5 chapters. Some of them are some other chapters or something like that. And you just let me know and we'll get that in the mail. We just need your mailing address and we'll get that to you.
Yeah. I'm honored, Mac. I really appreciate that. And I owe you some things too from coming on the Warehouse Underground podcast. So, I gotta get you a towel and a little pint glass and the whole bit. So I've got some good swag for you.
Okay, that's cool. All right. So is there anything that we didn't talk about, I didn't ask, or you didn't get a chance to say that you'd like to drop right here at the end of the show?
No, it was an honor, Mac. Like I told you in the beginning, I've listened to many of your podcasts, and I just want people to know it's very honest and authentic and great advice. I mean, it is great advice. And I was listening, I had my wife listen to some of it too. I'm like, this is so insightful. I'm like, this Mac is just 100% full tilt on leadership in his walk with Christ. I mean, he's a fantastic example of what I think humans can be if you make a decision in your life like you did of, I'm going to live this, and that's going to be my competitive advantage. I'm going to live the things that I say in my book. And I find that so endearing, Mac, because I know you do. And there's a lot of people that don't. They're one way on the camera or behind the microphone. They're another way in their life, and you're not that. And I respect that more than you know, and I appreciate that. And it comes through on all the podcasts that you do. All the episodes that you do are very authentic and genuine, and that is more and more rare these days, my friend. So thank you very much.
Yeah, well, thank you, man. I didn't expect that at the end, but that was nice and felt good to hear it. And that is my goal, and Ria's goal is to be authentic. Whenever somebody tells us that, we have a lot of people tell us that after we speak someplace, and that's the number one compliment we can get from anybody is we're authentic. And the key to that, like I tell people, you got to be authentic in a way that when you're being authentic, you're actually building trust with people and people. You know, some people can be authentic and be a jerk, but they're being authentic because they are a jerk. So that ain't a good way to be. But at least
I like that guy. He's my jerk. He's an equal opportunist jerk to everyone. I like.
He may build trust because he's being honest, but he's creating a lot more distrust because of who he is when he's being honest. Is not a good person. All right. So, all right, Ben, I appreciate it. I hope folks go out and listen to some of your other episodes. Check out your website and check out your Tiger. What was the Tiger thing again?
Tiger Team. Yeah, the Tiger Team. The Tiger Team at the Warehouse Underground. The show, it also plays on the website on the Tiger Team, and it's on Spotify and Apple as well. And it's pretty funny. I think people like it if they listen to it. But they really, you gotta have to be from the world of warehousing and distribution to understand some of the humor, you know, because it's unique to that industry. But I think anybody who's worked in that type of within the four walls of a facility can find some humor in it.
All right. Well, we'll wrap it up. And I meant to say something for my listeners to begin with, and I forgot, so I'm going to drop it right here at the end. I'll have to put it at the beginning of the next one. But I just want to let you guys know, if you listen or watch, Ria has talked me into getting on TikTok. Until last week, I don't even know what TikTok was. I didn't care. And so for anybody out there listening to me who is on TikTok, I actually already been doing it. Ria turned that into a full-time job for me the last week. I'm having to learn how to post and edit and do all that stuff. But I like to talk. I like to teach about leadership. So I kind of like it because you can just put little nuggets out there. And we got 40 years worth of nuggets of content already. So I can just go back and pull out little 30-second clips here and there and put that out there, and people who want it can get those little nuggets. So if you're in my audience, if you're on TikTok, go look up. It's at the Blue Collar Leadership is my handle, and Ria.story is hers. So check us out and listen on TikTok, or watch us on TikTok if you like that platform. Are you on TikTok, Ben? Just in case I need to shout out.
Mac, you're not dancing on there, are you? There's no dancing, right?
No, I'm trying to keep it pretty squared away to leadership. The difference that I am doing on there that's different than the rest of everything else is I'm on, like I got on there real quick before this. It says, hey, I'm about to interview Ben Hopkins on my my podcast. Just a little behind the scenes, a little personal stuff. Ria and I go on a hike, different trips. We go to cities. We might eat at a good restaurant. I may pop that up. So it may be a little more just personal stuff. So some people who follow me like that might actually like some of that, because that's really the only place they're going to see it. Are you dancing? Are you on TikTok dancing?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I think I'm just trying to figure out my stuff right now, Mac, you know. TikTok maybe in the future, but no, I got my hands full with my stuff right now, early in the game. So no TikTok for me.
Okay. No TikTok for Ben Hopkins, but maybe one day. But it wouldn't have ever been for me if it wouldn't have been for Rhea trying to tell me that you need to get on there and give it a shot. But the thing I do like about it is I've always heard there's a lot of young people on there, but it's been around long enough that a lot of those young people maybe are still on there and they've gotten older. So maybe it's a younger crowd that, I mean, I got analytics. It shows it's a lot of young people are listening and watching the few videos I've had out. And so if I can impact these younger people sooner, they can help us make the world a better place sooner. So maybe it ain't a bad thing.
Yeah, you're right. You get to them or get to them early. That's where they're at. So I think you're onto something with that, Mac.
It's all real, like always. I'm just trying to keep up. But all right. Thanks, Ben. And we'll see you around, partner. And for the audience, talk to you next time.